As an instrument of oppression and control, modern police departments are some of the most deeply rooted racist and repressive colonial institutions of the United States. The origins of policing systems come from the Night Watch, the Slave Patrols, and the Fugitive Police, and the present-day protective police forces. Every one of these institutions has had the task of surveilling and controlling the criminal population while supposedly imposing and upholding colonial law, but this is mainly through the use of violence and racial profiling. First established in South Carolina in 1704, then spread throughout the colonies, the slave patrols were organized groups of white men who monitored and enforced discipline upon black slaves, lasting well beyond the American Revolution. Slave patrols' purpose was to police slaves, particularly runaway and defiant slaves. Free blacks and even some whites who were suspected of associating with these slaves were also monitored. This is the foundation of the first type of police in the United States, and it was based off of racial profiling. The Fugitive Slave Law of 1850 covered the horrific actions of the slave patrols in keeping their conduct in the right of law. The law called for a force of federal commissioners empowered to pursue fugitive slaves in any state and return them to their owners. After the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 and the Civil War of 1865, slave patrols were officially terminated, but their tactics were adopted by other Southern racist organizations during the Reconstruction era. Their law enforcement methods included detaining suspicious persons, limiting movements, and the creation of pig laws. Pig laws unfairly targeted poor African Americans by giving felony sentences for misdemeanor crimes such as stealing farm animals, and it even made it a crime to be unemployed. The Jim Crow laws were created between 1890 and 1910, another attempt to hinder black prosperity in white America. These laws condemned black citizens to inferior treatment, public facilities, and absurd voting tests. The Harlem Renaissance was a literacy, artistic, and intellectual movement that sparked a new black identity and was held in the city of Harlem because of its rich culture and convenient location. The Harlem Riot of 1943 sparked a racial riot after a white police officer shot and wounded Robert Band. Robert Band was a black soldier who was questioned about a woman's arrest. Band reportedly did not witness the woman's arrest, but became involved in an altercation with a police officer and was shot while trying to flee the scene. The Civil Rights era, spanning from the mid-1950s through the late 1960s, was also a very turbulent time for citizens regarding their safety when confronted by the police. Various events solidified the reasoning behind our current fear of the police and their potential violence. The Birmingham Campaign of 1963 is an example of how the police brutally attacked African Americans without cause. In Birmingham, Alabama, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in collaboration with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, scheduled multiple peaceful protests to be executed. During these peaceful demonstrations, protesters were heartlessly hosed by police, savagely attacked by police canine dogs, and repeatedly assaulted without reason. Another event the next year of 1964, the Freedom Summer Project, better shows the police personified unjust violence towards blacks. The project was a campaign in Mississippi to include blacks in the American tradition of voting. This empowerment of blacks being able to experience this part of citizenship angered the racist white community. Neighborhoods were vandalized, and blacks were in fear of their lives. Police turned a blind eye to this violence, while also participating in these acts by putting on their infamous Ku Klux Klan hoodies. Even though these events seem like they happened so long ago, we are still facing the same issues on a greater scale today. In Oakland, California, the NAACP reported that out of 45 officers involved in shootings between 2004 and 2008, 37 of those shot were black. 1/3 of the shootings resulted in fatalities. No weapons were involved in 40% of the cases, and no officers were charged. Oscar Grant was a 22-year-old African-American man who was shot by the BART Police Department in Oakland, California. The police department responded to an early morning call reporting that several people on the Fruit Rail train station were involved in a fight. When officers arrived to the scene, they tried to restrain Grant, but he was resisting arrest. Officer Johannes Manzarelli then pulled out his handgun and shot Grant in cold blood. Oscar was unarmed and pronounced dead the next morning. The officers that shot Grant said that he thought he had pulled out his taser, but instead pulled out his gun. Officer Manzarelli was found not guilty and given a 1-year sentence. This tragedy is relived in the movie Fruitvale Station. According to ProPublica, black men are 21 times greater to be shot by police than a white man. On August 5, 2014, John Crawford III, a 22-year-old African-American male, was shot in a Walmart by the Beaver Creek Police Department in Ohio. Police officers responded to a call from Walmart saying that a man was holding a rifle in the store, pointing it at shoppers. The police then came to the store and shot the 22-year-old man after he failed to respond to the demands to drop his weapon. Crawford was pronounced dead at the scene, and it was found later on that he was only merely holding a pellet gun. The police involved have still yet to be indicted. In the 21st century, police attitudes towards poor communities of colors still resemble that of its predecessors 300 years ago. If we substitute the words slave patrols for police departments, and to the list of Native Americans and slaves, we add undocumented immigrants, African Americans, and political activists, we'll see that the narrative history of black bodies being policed in the United States hasn't been changed, but only modernized. What is your definition of police brutality?
Police brutality is any type of discrimination towards any particular person because they feel like they have the right to harass us because of the power they've been given to protect us, but instead they use it to combat against us because they feel like we're not equal to them.
Thank you.